Welcome back to Mets Daily. It is Hump Day, Wednesday, December 3rd, 2025. I'm your host, Jake Brown. Make sure you follow me at Jake Brown Live. You know where to go. Give me a follow on all social media and subscribe to my YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube below at Mets Daily. Smash that thumbs up. Comment below. We'll read your comments from yesterday like we always do. Today is the 7-year anniversary of the Mets landing Edwin Diaz. What a moment it was 7 years ago. And remember when they made the trade and it was like, we're giving up Kalenic. Is this going to work? Like, are the Mets going to end up regretting this? Is Diaz going to be as good as he was at one point in Seattle? Like, is the longevity there where, he'll be good here? He's only done it for a short amount of time. That trade ended up working incredibly. The Mets acquired Robinson Cano. Remember, they ate Robinson Cano contract. That was a big part of it. That they had to stomach Cano's contract, but they got Diaz in exchange for Jay Bruce, Anthony Swarzak, Gershon Batista, Justin Dunn, and Jared Kalenic. So I think it ended up being a good trade for the Mets because, listen, Seattle, Kalenic did not work. They moved on from him. He eventually worked for a bit in Atlanta. Cano obviously did not work out, but this became the Edwin Diaz deal, and Jay Bruce bounced around. Swarzak didn't do much. Batista's done nothing. Dunn's really done nothing. So the Mets, you could say, won that trade for Edwin Diaz. Now, we talk about it because, one, it's the anniversary, and two, will the Mets sign him? My worry is they're not going beyond 3 years. We talked about this yesterday, and that would be tragic. So, listen, if he goes elsewhere, and let's hope it's not the Dodgers if he does go elsewhere, you have to start to think of what's next. And I think the obvious guys, and we've talked about them, are Pete Fairbanks and Suarez from the Padres. Those are the two guys that, if Diaz goes, that's who I want. You can't aim below that. Like Emilio Pagan setting up Devin Williams, no thanks. But if you get Suarez, who was a successful closer in San Diego, you pair him with Devin Williams, AJ Minter, Brooks Raley, and whoever else you get, plus the guys you currently have, I think you're feeling okay about the Mets bullpen, assuming they have a better starting rotation and a couple starters that can eat innings. And Nolan McLean for a full season, I think, is going to help this bullpen in terms of eating innings because McLean was a dog out there. You could see he's good going 7, 6, 7. I mean, 8, 6, 7. So I think Nolan McLean is going to help the bullpen. I think getting a starter, maybe like a Framber Valdez, who can eat innings, is going to help the bullpen. But you still need a lockdown guy, and Diaz has been that. So, obviously, that's the preference. But to me, reading the tea leaves, it feels like they're not going to get to the 5 years, which is going to be a grave mistake. But I think those are the two options I'll be fine with. Fairbanks, Tampa, he's good. Suarez is good. Outside of that, I don't think there's a suitable replacement. Those two already aren't suitable enough. But you have to move on. If he doesn't come here, you can't say 2026 over. I'm done with the Mets because they didn't bring back Diaz. It'll obviously be infuriating for all of us if the Mets don't just pay up Edwin Diaz. They have the money. It feels like they're being a little too stingy on this. This feels more like a stingy Stearns. And I know closers can be volatile, but he proved it in New York, and he was so dominant. And I know some years he was a little bit off and he wasn't the same. I think 2024 it was a matter of, the year before, like just recovering from the injury, missing a whole year. He was really locked in this year. I mean, he was dialed in for a majority of the season, where I hope they get him back. But those are the only two guys. For me, let me know in the comments below. To me, it's Fairbanks. It's really Suarez and then Fairbanks. And then there's no one else outside of that I'll be really satisfied outside of Diaz if they get. And then you got to get other pieces. Now, if you get both, I think you're feeling good about Suarez, Fairbanks, Williams, Minter, Raley. But I don't think they're going to get both. But I think they got to land one of those guys. One guy I don't think they're going to land that the Mets are reportedly in the mix for is Kyle Schwarber. Now, Kyle Schwarber, to me, it just feels impossible for him to be a beloved Philly for so many years. That whole dugout in their celebration saying, and it's F the Mets. I just don't see a world where he comes to New York. Some guys don't want to come here, and I think enough teams are going to give him significant offers. He's a DH, and listen, if you have Francisco Lindor, Kyle Schwarber, Juan Soto, you're salivating. You're talking about 2 40-plus homer guys and a 30-plus homer guy. You're talking 110 to 120 homers combined between those three guys. And that helps you ease potentially moving on from Alonso. Because if the Mets did end up with Schwarber, and I don't think it's happening, I think that's the end of Pete Alonso. I think Schwarber would essentially be Alonso's replacement. Now, he'd be more of a DH probably, but in terms of that power bat, he's his replacement. And then I see them like trading for like Edwin Diaz for $12 million. Schwarber's your full-time DH, 162 games. And you got some big boppers. Yandy gives you a righty. Simeon's a righty. Schwarber lefty. Lindor switch hitter. Alvarez righty. You have a good balance in that point of righties and lefties. But to me, it just feels impossible for him to kind of betray, because Philly Nation will cry. And I know in the end money talks, but I do think there are going to be teams where he'll be like, yeah, I'd rather go Cincinnati. I'm from there. I feel like the Reds badly in need of a DH like that. I think the Reds are the team that are going to go all in on Kyle Schwarber. But the Mets are in the mix. Would I be happy if Kyle Schwarber came to the Mets? 100%. I don't think he's done. The guy just hit 56 homers. Like, he's a machine. He gets on base. There's no reason why you wouldn't want Kyle Schwarber in a Mets uniform. The reason you might not, maybe in some cases, is that he strikes out a lot. 197 strikeouts each of the last 2 years. So that's a guy that strikes out basically once a game. That is a little alarming, but his on-base is 365 last year. 366 the year before that. So he draws so many walks that you don't worry too much about the strikeouts, but the 200 strikeouts a year is a lot. So it doesn't feel like that's a David Stearns recipe, but those 56 homers sure were juicy. Now that's also a hitter's ballpark in Philadelphia. Got to factor that in. But my gut says really no shot the Mets get Schwarber, but they're in the mix. Let me know in the comments. You have interest in Kyle Schwarber. A guy in the Mets, if they move on from Pete Alonso, I know I talk a lot about moving on from Alonso, and most of you watching this probably don't want to. And I'm in no position to say I'm going to be mad if Pete Alonso gets back. I'll be a little frustrated if they give him a 5+ year deal, because that means Cohen stepped in and caved. The market, as of now, doesn't seem there again for Alonso, where I don't think he's getting a 6-7 year deal 2 times in one show. 6-7, Jesus. I gotta stop. I'm like the kid. I'm the unk here, with these stupid 6-7 jokes. So it feels like to me, it's going to be in the 3 to 4 year range, maybe with an option for Alonso. Do you go for Wilson Contreras if you move on from Alonso? Now, Wilson Contreras is an intriguing case. Wilson Contreras used to be a catcher. The Cardinals, he switched over to first base. And what I think the Mets are going to like about Wilson Contreras, who reportedly is more open to waiving his no-trade clause if it's the right fit. And I can't imagine New York wouldn't be the right fit for him, going to a team that has money that's going to compete for a championship in the Mets. I would imagine he'd have interest playing with Juan Soto, playing with Francisco Lindor. I got to figure. Contreras' defense has evolved. It used to be a weakness, a catcher to a strength at first base. He was rated as one of the MLB's top first basemen in 2025 with a +6 outs above average. Contreras has proved to be a strong defensive player at first base, earning praise from his manager for his footwork and adjustment to the position. He had a +4 rating from Baseball Savant, 5th in the NL for defensive run saved. So he's undoubtedly better defensively than Pete Alonso is. Now, he doesn't provide you anywhere near the offense, maybe, that Pete Alonso does. He had 142 strikeouts, which was the most in his career. That's a little bit alarming in 135 games. So don't love that. His on-base is 344. He had 257. His career on-base is 352, so similar to Alonso. 20 homers, 80 RBIs. So, listen, it's not – his numbers don't jump out on the page at you. He only played 84 games the year prior. He's really a 20 to 25 homer hitter and in between 70 and 85 RBI kind of guy, playing 135 games in 2025. So I wouldn't love Wilson Contreras, but I don't think it's a bad plan B. He's a 3-time All-Star. He's won a World Series with the Chicago Cubs in 2016. His first year in the league, he was a World Series champion. He's been in the league 10 years. He is older. He's 33. He'll be 34 in May, but his contract isn't terrible. If the Mets, stomach the deal and the Cardinals ate some of it, $18 million this year, $18.5 next year. He's a club option for $17.5 that has a $5 million buyout in that club option 2028. So it's really 2 years, $36.5 million. That's not insane. It's short term. I could see them doing that and then passing the keys to Ryan Clifford if they keep Clifford around to be their future first baseman. So two short-term guys, one I've mentioned a lot on here, Yandy Diaz, and then the other, Wilson Contreras. I know it's not that exciting. People are going to say you're going from 40 homers in Alonso to half that. Contreras, I understand, but in terms of run prevention, you are getting better. He is more affordable. He is shorter term. And maybe the Mets say, hey, yeah, we are going to get Kyle Schwarber, and instead we'll go lighter at first and make a trade. If they get Schwarber, I think you'll be perfectly fine if they land Contreras. Again, it's very much like, okay, I don't love Devin Williams individual, but if you pair Devin Williams with Edwin Diaz, I love it. I don't love Wilson Contreras individually. You pair Wilson Contreras with Kyle Schwarber, I love it. Or you pair Wilson Contreras with like a Cody Bellinger or Kyle Tucker, then I love it. So it's really a 1 and a 1A kind of move situation with a guy like Wilson Contreras. Let me know in the chat what you think about that. Comment below, smash that thumbs up. Let's read a couple of your comments for Tuesday's show here on Mets Daily. Make sure you keep hitting that subscribe, keep hitting that thumbs up button. Let's see what we got from Tuesday from JM Valentine 73. He says, this is a good move. His stuff is still solid and gives us another solid arm, whether he closes or not. We cannot just sit and wait for Diaz and look what else he just received, and he was absolutely terrible. Let's keep building depth. Yeah, I mean, listen, if Diaz goes, he goes. You have to move on in the offseason. I do think Devin Williams has good stuff and is a bounce-back candidate. So I don't want to be one of those people that rips him because, he had a bad 3 to 4 months. I mean, those were the first, 4 bad months of his MLB career. So you look at Devin Williams' body of work, I don't think it's fair to just Yankee fans are have fun with that. I think the reality is outside of that, he's had an incredible career. Now, did the pressure get to him in New York? If that's the case, the Mets would have a problem. But I think with that year in New York under his belt, adjusting, coming to a bit of a friendlier fan base, I would say, and a Mets fan than Yankee fan where you blow one save, you get booed out of town. Aaron Judge has gotten booed on opening day. So, their fans are kind of just relentless in the Bronx. I think he could be a fit here in Queens. So I hope Devin Williams is. From Nick Pauly, who sent in a super chat the other day. Thank you to Nick. If no Diaz, I would pivot to Kenley Jansen on a 2-year deal. Every time he enters, I think, boy, he looks hittable, and he puts up a 10-pitch perfect inning. We need a closer with big game success. Not a bad name. He's not a name I've really brought up on this because I just think at this point, Nick, he's at the back end of his career, but you're not wrong. You always think he's done, and then he puts up a good season. Kenley Jansen is 37 years old. He's 38. He just turned 38. So he's pitched 16 years. He's probably got 1 or 2 years left. My worry is going to come to the Mets and suck, but Kenley Jansen's body of work cannot be denied. He's got a career 2.57 ERA over 16 years. He had a 2.59 ERA, so right around his career numbers for the Angels, 59 innings last year. He had 29 saves. So, listen, I would not mind taking a flyer on Kenley Jansen for a year. I'm not in love with the 38-year-old closer, Nick. I am cool if, say, they got a Fairbanks and Jansen, and you told me the Mets bullpen was Devin Williams, Kenley Jansen, Pete Fairbanks, A.J. Minter, Brooks Raley. I actually think that would be a strength for them. Their bullpen becomes a strength if you're telling me they get Jansen on a 1-year deal. I do think his numbers have not dipped where, I don't think it's risky to take a 1-year deal on him. I think anything more than one, I don't think it's worth it for Kenley Jansen. But that could be a product of just pitching in L.A. and the Angels. But he's not a bad name. He signed a 1-year, $10 million deal last year. If you get him 1 year, $10 million, you get Pete Fairbanks, I'm fine with Kenley Jansen. I'm not great with a 38-year-old closer, though. But good point there. That's not a name I thought of. We'll talk more about Kenley Jansen, I think, another day for sure. Goaty Goat says, I don't get not liking this move. We complain about having a trash bullpen all the time, so we get a dude a year ago was almost Edwin Diaz. We don't like it. He's planned to be the setup guy. If not Edwin, they get someone else. I think a lot of us are just going based off last year with Williams. I don't think it's fair to rip Williams as much as he's been getting. So you're not wrong, Goaty Goat. Great name. I just think we're worried about that in New York, and maybe he just had success because Milwaukee, there's zero pressure. New York, some guys, Ryan Helsley came here and absolutely crapped the bed. He was unwatchable. And the Mets moved on. He got a nice little contract in Baltimore. I think we all want to give Williams a shot. I think we're just worried emotionally, like fans are with Alonso. Fans were with Brandon Nimmo getting traded. Emotionally, we're worried about losing Diaz and just how good Diaz is. You worry about not having the dominance in the ninth inning if Devin Williams is the closer. Because clearly Williams struggled in that closer role. And here's the other issue. The year before he was hurt. So it's been a couple of years for a full body of Devin Williams magic. And that's where I think we worry. And we feel, hey, Alonso ruined him in the playoffs. He was bad last year. Hurt that year. He gave up the Alonso homer. So will he be healthy? Will he be able to handle the pressure? And will he be successful? And I think he will be. I think Devin Williams is going to have a good year for the Mets. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Keep on commenting. We'll talk to you tomorrow. We'll hopefully have a guest either tomorrow or Friday. Thank you so much. Keep smashing that thumbs up. Keep subscribing. I'm Jake Brown, at Jake Brown Live. Scan that code. Become Mets Daily Insider member. Just $5 a month, cheaper than a cup of coffee. I just got a cup of coffee here in New York City yesterday. $8. Unbelievable. Coffee. $7, $8. It's not even that big of a cup. I'm going to go get a cup of coffee now. Have a great day, everyone. Let's go, Mets. We'll talk to you tomorrow.